This is the Tecware B68, this is the RK68, and this is the Dayu EK871. These are all compact wireless mechanical keyboards, and we're going to be comparing it today because that's right, you asked it, we got it, and I went out specifically to buy the RK68 just to do this comparison. So if you appreciate my effort, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on all those things. Let's jump straight into it. Now, before I start the comparison, can I just talk about how complicated it is to buy an RK wireless mechanical keyboard? Because they have so many different configurations and half or even 70% of them aren't even listed on RK's official website. This is the RK68 that I ended up buying. It was 55 Singapore dollars. It's wireless, it's mechanical grade, but it only has white LEDs. It does not have RGB, but it does have hot swappability and it does have RK red branded switches. But if you wanted RGB, you can get an RK68 with RGB. And it gets really confusing because the moment you search RK something in Lazada or Shopee, you just get flooded with a bunch of posts. And depending on which post you buy from or which seller you buy from, you can get an RK68 with or without RGB, with or without hot swappability, it seems. You can get an RK61 as well by accident because they look really similar in pictures. You can get an RK71 which basically doesn't have hot swappability but usually has RGB and usually only has brown switches. It's an absolute mess and it's just complicated. If RK listed all the possible configurations on the official website, it will probably clear things up a little bit. But I think the main problem here is just that there's just too many models with too many different features. I guess that option and the customizability is convenient and nice for many, but for me it's just like, how do I break this down for my viewers so that they can understand the value proposition here? Now, before I start the comparison, if you like my video or if there are any questions you want to ask away in the Discord linked in the description. Many people there, happy to help. It's a bustling, growing community. It's awesome. So let's start this comparison by talking about price. Why? Because I want to keep price in the back of your minds as you look at the different features that these keyboards have. The RK68 that I got here has hot swappability and no RGB. So it costs 55 Singapore dollars. But you can get the one with RGB for I think about 70 to 75 Singapore dollars depending on where you buy it from on Shopee or Lazada. So keep that price in mind. The Tecware B68 only has the Tecware B68. It doesn't have random variants with no model name differences. It is about 80 to 100 Singapore dollars, 85 to 100 Singapore dollars depending on who you buy it from and whether it's on discount or not. So yeah, that's about the price you can expect to get a B68. This is the Dayu EK871, a little bit more of a niche, less well-known model, but it's also very competitive with these two keyboards and it comes in at about 90 to 100 Singapore dollars depending on when you buy it, where you buy it. So the main seller for this is VPC, it's the local importer, distributor, retailer for this keyboard, so there's that. So those are the three keyboards prices. With that, let's jump into the comparison. As always, we start off with the physical aspects of things because we type with our eyes before we type with our fingers. And I would say that, well, the most daring keyboard design is clearly the Dayu, pun intended, not intended, I don't know, EK871. It's got bright colored accents and stuff like that, and yes, it is a little bit loud for some people, but you can always swap the red keycaps out for the grey keycaps that they do include in the box. So if you don't like the red keycaps, well, you can just swap those out and have a white, grey, two-tone keycap. I think its design is the most daring and most interesting with a more exciting font and exciting like backspace key, and that helps make it stand out. Whether you like that or not, that is completely subjective because, well, some people would prefer the clean, simple, single color, white and black keyboards that the B68 and the RK68 are. And with the B68 and RK68 being available in both white and black, they do have options for customizing the design as well. But the Dayu does come with either white and red combination or white and green combination or even white and blue. So if you like different accent colors, you can get those as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of design, apart from that, they're all quite similar, just simple keyboards, not much bezel to them. But there are a few key differences here and there. The RK68 has a removable clip-on shroud. It's not magnetic, but at least you can remove it so that you can spray paint this and mod the keyboard's looks, or you can just pull it out to have a different looking keyboard, or you can just pull it out to clean your keycaps or clean underneath your keyboard from time to time, which is a nice to have, that's for sure. Another key difference is that the B68 and the RK68 do not have adjustable kick feet. So if you like adjusting the height of your keyboard, you can't do that, but you can do that on the EK871 with these like magnetic cube rotational things. It's very hard to explain, but basically just understand that you have 3 or 4 different height adjustments on the EK871, which is something that some people would like, me included. I do like it quite a bit. Now, moving on to the next aspect of physical design, it's the build quality. And that's where the RK68 is a third place. Without doubt, it's the last. But that's not to say it's terrible. It's still quite rigid, quite solid, quite well built. It still has PBT double shot keycaps. It's just not as well assembled and put together as the others. Partly because it's got cheap switches that have quite severe switch wobble, but also because of other reasons like it's the lightest, the plastic doesn't feel all that expensive, and there's a little bit more flex than the other two. The B68 has the best built case out of all three without doubt. Like, the case is the most rigid and it's also the heftiest, which gives the best illusion of premium and rigidity, even if it might not be true. And it's definitely the most well built in terms of the case. The keycaps are also pretty nice as well, but they're nowhere as good as the keycaps you find on the Dare U. The Dare U loses out a bit compared to the Tecware in terms of the case build quality, but the build quality of the keycaps on the Dare U EK871, they're far superior to the other two. They're super thick, they're super chunky, they're super thocky. Like, these keycaps are the best keycaps out of all three of them and have the best build quality. So that is it for design and build quality, which is arguably very important for something that you're going to look at all the time because it will be on your desk. Now let's move on to the next thing, which is features. Starting off with wireless connectivity features. Well, all three of them can connect wirelessly via Bluetooth to your computer, to your devices, and they can connect up to 3 devices at the same time, and you can easily swap between them either with a little switch or with a keyboard shortcut, which is a nice feature to have. I don't know how many people actually use those features, but it's nice to have and it's nice to see that all three of them have it. However, the RK68 is the only one to have a wireless dongle attached with it, so you can connect via a wireless dongle via 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi. Now, this doesn't give you really a noticeable performance improvement in terms of lag or for gaming and latency, but it does help you not have to deal with Bluetooth, which might be a problem for some people, because I understand that, you know, some desktop PCs, some motherboards to this day do not come with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi installed on them, so having a wireless USB dongle does make it more convenient for people with PCs or laptops that don't have Bluetooth. You don't have to get an adapter or some sort of dongle, and you could just plug it in and have it connect like that wirelessly without dealing with Bluetooth. The B68 and Dare U does not have a USB dongle, and I really do like dongles, so hopefully in the next versions they might have a USB dongle, fingers crossed. But yeah, the RK68 wins on the connectivity front because it does have the advantage of using a wireless dongle, which I do like. Now, in terms of battery life, all three of them last pretty long. I think they all have about 1400 milliamp hour battery inside, and they all lasted me like a good 1 to 2 weeks in terms of battery life. I didn't have to charge them often. It was never a problem, never a big concern, and they all kind of go to sleep if you don't type on them for a bit, so that's good. Now, this is battery life with the with the LEDs turned off, by the way. If you turn on your LEDs, your RGBs, they're not gonna last as long, it's pretty obvious. Moving on to the next feature that I want to talk about, and that is backlighting. Now, the Dare U EK871 is only available with fixed color backlighting. This one particular has a light green teal color backlight, which looks pretty nice, but well, you have to be aware that it's only available with a single fixed backlight. It doesn't have lighting effects, but you can change the brightness of the lights, which is good enough for me. I don't care about backlighting too much. Now, the Tecware B68 and the RK68 do come with RGB as well. The RK68, well, you have to get the version with RGB, and they do have lighting effects. Even the non-RGB version of the RK68 has lighting effects, so that is a nice to have. But whether you really want to be using RGB LEDs on a battery-operated wireless mechanical keyboard, that it's, you know, it depends on who you are, because you're going to be charging your keyboard a lot if you're running your RGB LEDs all the time. That's something to keep in mind as well. So yeah, these two keyboards do have the advantage over the EK871 because the B68 and the RK68 have lighting effects, and the RK68 and the B68 have options for RGB if you do happen to go for the RGB version. The B68 only has RGB version, by the way, just to make it clear. In terms of keyboard shortcuts, the RK68 is without doubt the winner because it's got the ability to control music and all those things, and that will be very useful for someone who plays music all the time when gaming or something and you don't want to tab out and stuff. The Tecware B68 does have the shortcuts for, say, F keys and stuff. However, it does not have any sort of music controls and things on the shortcuts, which is unfortunate. The EK871 also has shortcuts for the F keys, but it also has shortcuts for controlling volume, so it's kind of in between the B68 and the RK68. But the RK68 is the winner in terms of shortcut because you can change songs, you can play pause, you can launch apps with it, which is awesome, and I love and I appreciate it. And this will be very useful for when I start streaming on Twitch, which will be happening very soon once I start building my PC. So stay tuned from that, and do tell me in the comments if you actually do want to watch me start streaming on Twitch, because I'm kind of like up in the air. I don't know if I should or not. Okay, so those are the features. Let's move on to, well, other things as well. Let's talk about the typing experience and the typing performance and gaming and all basically the switches in here. Which have the best switches? If you like linear switches, you're in it for a treat with the B68. These come with get-around yellows that are pre-lubed, and as I said in my review, in my in-depth review of the B68, they are really awesome, really good switches. And if you like linear switches and you buy this, you basically don't need to swap the switches out. Like if you want to get an even smoother typing experience, I guess you can pull out the hot swappable switches and lube them again, put them back in with even more lube and a smoother experience. But really, for 80% of linear switch lovers, this get-around yellow combination setup that they got in the B68, it's the best linear switch choice out of the three, and it's actually, I think, good enough for most people as well. If you like tactile switches, then the best switch option you can get is the Dare You brown switch from the Dare You EK871. Obviously, it's not hot swappable, so it better be a good fixed switch, and it's pretty decent. Now, I really do like the brown switches on here. They're tactile, they're pre-lubed as well, so they're smooth, they're comfortable, they feel very nice, and they feel really good. Like the tactile bump is definitely sharp and noticeable, which is appreciated, unlike the get-around browns, unlike the RK browns that I've tried in the past. So when it comes to tactile switches, this Dare You is the winner. Now, if you want clicky switches, number one, you're an animal, and number two, the RK and the Dare You clicky switches are not desirable in any way, shape or form. They're not really that impressive. However, I would say that the Dare You blue switch does edge out the RK blue switch a little bit. Although the RK has the advantage of being hot swappable, so you can slap in some cowl box jade navies if you want to get extra bombastic with your clicks. So in terms of switches, well, that's how it is, and that's how I see it. You have to keep in mind that the B68 and the RK68 do have hot swappability, a feature that you cannot get on any variant of the EK871 or EK861. So if there are switches that you prefer to get-around yellows or get-around browns, which I don't see the point of changing those get-around yellows, they're so good. If there are switches that you prefer or you want to experiment with different switches, you have the option to do that on the Tecware B68 and the RK68. So for modest tinkerers, there's an advantage there, but for some people, maybe not. It depends really on who you are, what switches you like. If you just want tactile switches and just be happy with what tactile switches you get your hands on, this is perfectly fine. But if you want the tinker swap out switches, or you want absolute perfection in terms of linear switches, B68. Not absolute perfection, just a really good linear switch experience. B68 with get-around yellows is a nice option. And alright, with that, here's a little sound test so you get an idea of how they sound like to type on. I personally think they all sound really good, but the EK871 definitely sounds the best due to its thickest keycaps, stockiest keycaps. But do be aware that it has brown switches while these two have linear switches, so it's not completely of even fair comparison. So, how do you think they sound? Tell me in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And let's conclude then. In conclusion then, which is the best value for money wireless mechanical compact keyboard? Well, this really depends on who you are and what you're doing with it, as with every single conclusion. The Daewoo EK871 is for people who want a tactile switch and want a keyboard that is good from the get-go and doesn't need work. It's got nice switches, it's got really thick PBT keycaps, you slap it on your table, you'll be happy with it, you don't worry about it, and it's a good option as such, especially if you like tactile switches, because it's got the best tactile switch of the three. The RK68 is, I think, the choice that you should get if you're a modder, because it's the most popular keyboard globally. You'll be able to get most accessories and different things to mod it, which is good. You're going to get the most support for modding, which is something that you want to keep in mind. But while the RK68 is cheaper than the B68, it does have switches that you pretty much have to replace if you want to get a very a refined premium typing experience, because the RK switches are not that great. So even though it might be $20 cheaper than the B68 even with RGB, you have to factor the cost of new switches in and modifications into the total cost. Then the price becomes more even and more competitive. Which is why I say the B68 is also a very interesting option if you're not planning to mod. Like if you're planning to switch the switches out anyway, get the RK68, because then you will be getting rid of cheap switches that you never plan to use in the first place. But if you're planning to not swap your switches out at least anytime soon, the B68 is a great option because the Gateron yellows, especially if you like linear switches, are phenomenal and honestly really quite good. And I think the B68 is in between these two because of that. It does give you the option to mod down the line because it has hot swap, it's easy to disassemble, it's got a pretty standard layout. But as it stands, straight out of the box, it's also a very good option on its own without any modifications, because the switches it comes with are nice and lubed, the keycaps it comes with are pretty decent, and the build quality without anything and the sound without any modifications is pretty good. So it's kind of like a premium RK68 where you don't have to mod it. Like if you get the RK68 and you don't mod it, you're doing something wrong. If you get the B68 and you don't mod it, well, that's understandable because as it stands, it's a pretty nice keyboard on its own. But you do get that option to mod it down the line. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're planning to swap the switches from the get-go, RK68. If you're not planning to switch to mod it from the get-go, B68. If you don't care about modding ever and you just want tactile switches and thick, bulky PBT keycaps, EK871. I think that sums it up. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. This video was very difficult to make. I started shooting this video at 6 AM. It's now 9:16 AM. My voice is completely hoarse, completely gone. I'm gonna go get a cup of water, and yeah. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support recently. We're really gonna hit 10K subscribers soon, so I can't wait. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all those good stuff as well. And if you wanna check out keyboard pictures and stuff, follow me on Instagram. That will be greatly appreciated. And a giveaway will come soon for my 10K subscribers milestone. So make sure you subscribe and join my Instagram and follow my Discord before that, because those people who subscribe before I hit 10K will be part of the third mechanical keyboard giveaway, which will be this, the RK68. So there's that. Anyway, I'm gonna end this video off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye. Oh, bollocks. Oh yeah, and I put the giveaway at the end of the video because I wanna give like the little sneak peeks to the people who support my videos and watched all the way to the end. A little extra bonus, like a reward for watching the conclusion.